Now, a couple weeks ago, I posted a video listing the 4 worst financial decisions I've ever made. Thankfully, not all the decisions I've made financially have been bad. Today, I want to share with you 5 of the best financial decisions I've ever made, and here those are in no particular order. The first good decision I made was I started early. I don't think I can overstate how important an early start on saving and investing is. And the single greatest friend any of us have in building wealth is compounding interest. I was introduced to this concept in college, but the first time I realized that I could put it to use for myself was reading Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. Now, in the book, Dave illustrated how someone who invested $2,000 for 8 years could outsave another person who saved $2,000 for 38 years. And how is this possible? Well, the first saver started earlier. For example, did you know that $1 saved today could be worth $7.60 in 20 years, $20.94 in 30 years, and $159.04 in 50 years? Well, the multiples are incredible, but it's only possible if you start early. Now, my wife and I thankfully started investing when we got married in 2006, and now that we've been saving for almost 20 years, things are getting pretty exciting. In 2019, our investments actually earned more than we did in our day-to-day jobs. Now, granted, it was a stellar year for the stock market, but we hope it's the first of many years like that as compounding interest continues to work its magic. So don't drag your feet. There's no substitute for time. Get started saving and investing as soon as you can. The second best decision I made was saying no to debt. Now, as I mentioned above and in the post about our biggest money mistakes, we followed Dave Ramsey for the first few years in our careers. That was my wife and I. So debt wasn't something we accumulated much of aside from a small student loan and the purchase of our first house. And thankfully, we were convinced that consumer debt wasn't a good way to get ahead financially, so we've always paid cash for cars and never ever carried credit card debt. Now, normally people aren't bothered when I mention the pitfalls of credit card debt, but for some reason borrowing money for automobiles seems to be more controversial. I don't want to pass judgment on anyone for their financial choices, but I think avoiding car debt might be one of the most important financial decisions my wife and I ever made. In a video we made recently for our YouTube channel, we showed how paying cash for cars could save you over $1 million over the course of 30 years. We'll put a link to that video above in the description below, and it may be a bit shocking, but if you consider the depreciation, interest, and opportunity costs of car debt, then it adds up fast. Now, personally, my recommendation is to not ever borrow money for a depreciating asset, but if you must, be sure that your combined housing and transportation budget stays below 30% of your take-home pay. By putting a limit on the amount of debt you're servicing every month, you're ensuring that you have something left over to save and invest. The third best decision was using Roth accounts. Now, personally, I feel like I'm a good American. I enjoy freedom. Baseball is among my favorite sports, go Giants, and the 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays. Now, with that said, I don't share the same level of patriotic fervor for the IRS. I know they have a job to do, and I understand that it's very important, and truthfully, I do want to do my part. I just don't want to do anything more than my part. So when I first heard about Roth IRAs and learned that I could excuse the government from at least some portion of my assets for the remainder of my life, I was pretty intrigued. If you think about most tax-deferred accounts, they work a bit like a silent partnership in business. First off, there's a general member, you, who's responsible for operating the enterprise on behalf of the silent partner or partners, in this case, Uncle Sam. And a silent partner does not control the day-to-day activities of the general partner. He or she does not vote on decisions and doesn't typically have an active role in the business. However, when a partnership's profits are realized, the silent partner is there with their hands wide open, ready for their piece of the pie. And for years, you will contribute and operate your own little financial empire without much outside influence or help. Then when the time comes to enjoy the fruits of your labor, you get to share them with our favorite silent partner, Uncle Sam. That is, of course, unless you invested in a Roth account. In that case, you would have bought your partner out of his share when you began investing by paying taxes on your contributions. Now, personally, this has been worth it to me more often than not. For one, I've enjoyed life in lower income tax brackets for some time, making Roth contributions more tax efficient than tax-deferred contributions. But I also experience a bit of paranoia when I consider the growing financial obligations of the federal government against what are currently historically low income tax rates. I suppose I have a nagging feeling that tax rates will increase one day, making Roth assets even more valuable now. Somehow I've managed to get almost 55% of our personal portfolio in Roth accounts, meaning over half of our investments will be able to go for years to come completely tax-free. Hey, if the information in this video is helpful to you, please show your appreciation by clicking like and subscribe below. That will allow our channel to grow and allow me to keep making content like this so I can help people learn about personal finance. All right, good decision number 4 was doing things myself. About 8 years ago, my wife and I bought a fixer-upper. It needed a complete overhaul and renovation from the foundation to the roof. but I'm happy to report that we did all that work. I'm actually sitting in that fixer-upper at the moment. Now, initially, I wanted to do most of the renovations myself. I think I'm kind of a handy guy and I like taking on projects anyway, but I think the slow progress on nights and weekends really would have been a strain on my family. So after a few months, we hired a contractor to do most of the heavy work for us. It wasn't cheap, but it was completed in just a few months, and we've been living happily ever since. With that said, there were still several projects in non-living spaces like the attic and basement that I decided to do myself. Now, back on our website, we have a post that we wrote about this experience where we estimate that we saved at least $75,000 in just a few years by completing many of these projects on our own. If you're at a loss for how to fix or update something yourself, at least try to find a YouTube video about it before you call a pro. You may be shocked to see just how easy it is to do some basic plumbing or automotive work yourself. Those savings add up and lead to significant sums when the opportunity cost of investing those savings is considered. Now, with all that said, it does pay to know your own limitations. Don't take on any projects that could be unsafe or are just beyond your skill to manage. Good decision number 5 was investing in equities. Now, if you ask any financial advisor about asset allocation, they will generally suggest that you own a mix of stocks and bonds for anywhere from 20-80, 50-50, 80-20, somewhere in there, depending on your age and risk tolerance. I'm not saying they're wrong, but we chose early on to drop bonds and pursue the potential growth benefits of a portfolio heavily leaning towards stocks. In fact, for much of our investing lives, we've had basically 100% of our invested assets in stock mutual funds and ETFs. And the reason we did this is because we're young, or at least we were when we started out, and we had plenty of time to recover from an unexpected downturn in the stock market. Now, there's certainly a time and place for holding bonds or non-correlated assets to stocks, but the justification is primarily centered around the need to limit sequence of returns risk. And if you're young, sequence of returns risk is low or non-existent. That's because you're not going to need the money for a long time. As for us, the results have been pleasant. The years we've been 100% invested in equities have outperformed the target date mutual funds that we were in before on the order of 2 to 3% annually. For over several decades, this could translate into thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. I do want to clarify that we're not endorsing the ownership of individual stocks as an investment strategy. The stocks we owned were mutual funds and ETFs, which provided broad stock market exposure while also providing diversification to avoid concentration risk. For more about how we have approached the use of bonds in our own personal portfolio, I've recorded another video. I will link it above and put it also a link to it in the description below. Please check that out if you want to have more detail about how we approach that. Now that you've watched this, please note that none of this is meant as a suggestion on how you should arrange your own investment portfolio. History is not necessarily an accurate indicator of future results. I would encourage you to learn more to set up your own investment strategy, and if you need help, seek the help of a financial professional. And we have much more on our website and also on our YouTube channel about investing, Roth IRAs, 401ks, taxes, all sorts of different things. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. We'll have links to all that below. As always, we're grateful for your interest. God bless and take care.